Welcome to Bridge the Atlantic. We are your hosts, Ross Barber
and Marcio Novelli.
And today on the show, we have New York City producer, author, and podcaster, Jesse Cannon with us. Hey, Jesse, how's it going?
It's going great. It's good to talk to you guys.
Likewise.
Good to talk to you. Before we start, I'm actually reading Jesse's book right now. I'm 25% of the way through, which is awesome.
Not 25.5 or 26%.
No,
actually, it's exactly 25%.
Yeah. Well, I've not calculated my Kindle.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you're actually reading a book, not.
Marcio, you're living in the past.
I know, right?
Things have moved on.
I highly suggest to anybody to read the Kindle version because it's so thick. Otherwise, it's like it starts to give you carpal tunnel. So,
I love the highlight feature.
Yes.
On the Kindle, and I have to say your book is the one I've highlighted most. So,
that's so nice.
So
he's been talking about your book quite a bit. I haven't read it yet, so I've got to be. I'm the next one to read it. So
nice.
Which, by the way, the name of the book, Ross, you should mention it.
Yes, thanks for reminding me that. I remember what it's called.
Get more fans. The Do-It-Yourself Guide to the Music Business.
Yes,
that's the one. Yes, exactly. So we like to start our interviews off by asking you 3 things about yourself that everyone should know. So these can be obvious, they can be obscure, whatever you think people should know.
They can be made up. No one will
Sometimes
know.
They are.
Wow, that's really interesting. I've never thought about this. I'm a political and food nerd as well. The only thing I know about as much about the music business and the weird things about is obscure political facts and which restaurants to eat in New York City. I mostly spend my time in a windowless room, producing, engineer, mixing, and mastering records. I am the best white dancer in Brooklyn. The last one has the least bit of truth to it.
That's all right. Well, first of all, can you share a bit of obscure political facts with us, as well as, like you mentioned, New York places to eat?
Well, I guess of New York places to eat, I could do a little bit more obscure. Everybody knows different things with politics. It's kind of like the music business that something that's really obvious to somebody is really not obvious to another. Like, I think one of the most interesting things about like writing a really exhaustive 750-page book on the music business is everybody didn't know something else. It's never everybody didn't know the same thing that is in that book. And I think that's the funny thing is we all have loopholes in our education. That's very interesting. But as far as New York food goes, there's a place called Pasar Malam that is because they don't have a liquor license, they're not getting the credit they deserve. But there's over 100 items on the menu, and I've had about 50 of them, and it's been amazing. I mean, I live a few blocks away, and they deliver, so it makes life easy.
Right. Well, that's pretty cool, man. And should we talk about the dancing? I had some food
tips when I was in New York.
Nice. Well, if you ever come back, I'm happy to write a list for whatever your food needs are. It's one of my specialties.
Well, my wife and I are vegan, and we traveled to New York City. I think it was a couple of years ago, and actually, New York City apparently was just recently rated the best place to eat for vegans. And man,
I would believe it.
Yeah, I thought it would be Los Angeles because the highest number of vegetarians and vegans actually live in Los Angeles. But New York City, yeah.
We're a way better food city.
It was pretty amazing, man. Yeah.
Well, so did you go to Angelica Kitchen?
Yes, actually, I think I did. At Candle 79, we went to... I'm bad with names, but we went to quite of the big ones and some smaller ones too. I got to brush up on the names, but yeah.
My roommate's the pastry chef at Angelica Kitchen.
Oh, no way. That's awesome. So maybe next time you can hook me up.
Yeah, I was going to say you stop by the house and there's like always pastry sitting on the counter because she's sick like that. So
that's awesome. Yeah. So Jesse, you are the former manager of Man Overboard and Transit, who both eventually signed to Rise Records.
Who did that under my watch? Yes.
Yes, that's what we wanted to ask you about. Yes. Yeah, so what was that like managing those two bands? Was that obviously wasn't at the exact same time?
It's a very funny story. So Rise Records came to us shortly before we put out us being Man Overboard. Shortly before we put out Real Talk, and we're like, "Hey, we want to offer you a record deal." And like we look at the bands on the label, we're like, you got to be kidding me. We're not signed to this label. And then they keep coming back at us. The contract kept getting better. And we're like, man, compared to the other labels, and I don't want to call out the other labels, these guys are way more enthusiastic, way more smart, way more cool. And like, they kind of, they're like that person that, you're initially when they come to you and they want to date you, you're like, I don't know, you're wearing that hat. You seem like that guy from the pickup artist or something. And you're like, I don't know about that. And then eventually like, these guys are pretty smart, pretty cool. And while there's like, they hang out with some pretty lame people, there's some pretty cool stuff. And they like really gave us an amazing contract. And so the big problem is that we were not in contract with Run for Cover, but there was an expectation with Run for Cover that we were going to do more with them. We hadn't worked out all the contract details yet because, as often happens, it was like, yeah, we should do this. There was a lot of handshake stuff, but it wasn't out loud. And Jeff from Run for Cover is a good friend of mine. And I said to him, when I started managing Transit around that same time, I'm like, listen, I never want to go through this with you again. And about 2 hours later, Tim from Transit calls me. He's like, so Rise Records is going to offer us a contract now that you're managing us. I walked over to a wall and hit my head against it about 5 times. I was like, and that's what I get for making a promise. And so that was right about when Man Overboard had finished their contract. So that we had another month or two of doing Transit's contract. And, so then we decided on a day to do the announcement, and that day was just like the day, we've all had our day of reading the internet and going, wow, like people on the internet just suck.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And like the absolute punk comment thread was just so ridiculous. Like I'd be like, so he'd be like, oh, they're going to send them to Joey Sturgis and make them into like an Attack Part 2. I'm like, I'm their producer and manager. That's not happening. We already have discussed that's not happening. 2 comments later. Oh my God, he's already tried to cover this up. What the fuck? This guy's a liar. Da 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 da.
It's best to not engage them.
Yeah, I know. Don't be the troll,
you learn. You live and learn.
Yeah, I still feed the trolls sometimes. I go under the bridge. I give them their meat, and I regret it, but like I do it. I'm somebody who, I grew up on the internet, and
yeah, of course.
It's just like that thing of like, I'm generation 1 of the internet, and I got used to debating things on hardcore punk forums when I was 15 years old, and I can't break free.
So you were a part of Man Overboard and Transit's transition to getting signed and becoming established. Whose decision is it when a band is no longer managed by the same manager? Is that your decision? Was that the band's decision?
So no longer managed. So like when they went from another manager to me, from me to another manager, do you mean? So both groups were a different thing. I managed Transit much less time than I managed Man Overboard. Both of them started from relationships with me being their producer first, and then me just believing them and helping them out. And eventually it's like, all right, let's make this formal. So with Transit, what happened was we had gotten done doing the second record we did together, and they had gotten an offer from the Gaslight Anthems manager. And so I was producing, writing a book, and managing them and Man Overboard. And I was very much in over my own head.
So you were taking it easy, basically.
Yes. As I'm always just doing one thing.
Yeah, that's a true creative, though. I mean, there's not only one outlet. I mean, if you're a creative person,
it sounds kind of like us.
Yeah, exactly. Never ever limit yourself. I'm a true believer in that. So
yeah, and I think that's the thing is we get addicted to creativity.
Yes.
I mean, my book that I'm writing right now is all about creativity. I date somebody who's like, learned architecture, fashion design, is a neuropsychologist, does, and a musician. And so it's like, I watch her and I feel humbled every day.
That's amazing.
But you get addicted to it. And I think that was the thing. But so because I was doing so much and I want to do so much and I want to be involved with so many cool things, Transit took the chance to do that. So Man Overboard then got so popular that when we were making the self-titled record, we started to have some disagreements about which ways to go. And we still do actually disagree about those, even though we're all good friends. And I was talking to Justin on Sunday, and we can make nice little jokes about those disagreements, about what we think. But it eventually just became that I had to choose management or record production of managing a band as big as them. And record production is something I've been at since it's actually been 21 years. I first started producing records at 15. So
that's awesome.
I chose that, and they chose that, and we went our separate ways, and we're all still the best of friends and have a lot of fun when we see each other still. But, it was time for, after 72 songs produced together and, 3 years of working together, it was time for them to move on, and they've done a great job since.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of being a producer for 21 years, you said you've worked on records by The Cure, Limp Bizkit, Dillinger Escape Plan, Saves the Day, Senses Fail. Most of those are some of my favorite bands of all time. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
We won't say which one's not.
Yeah, I'm just going to I'm going to say maybe
Maybe it starts with an L and
possibly
ends in Iskit.
Possibly that's one of the ones not included. But yeah, so what were those experiences like?
Well, all of them are very different. I'll run through some of my favorite ones.
Yeah, please do.
The Cure was particularly magical because I got to also, that was the start of my working with Ross Robinson, who was one of my favorite producers growing up. So I also worked with Steve Evans on that, as I did a bunch of those other records you mentioned. And Steve Evans was my other favorite producer growing up. So getting to work with both of them at once was a little crazy, along with a band that I grew up loving and worshiping.
I grew up listening to the Cure. When I say I grew up listening, I'm not talking as a teenager. I'm talking as like a toddler.
Yeah, I got all my Cure and Smiths and replacements and other cool records from my father.
Yeah, for me, it was my Aunt Lilia. She was a huge fan of The Cure. And I remember, I think I was like 3 years old dancing around to Love Cats. I mean, so like,
I can totally imagine that.
Yeah,
you were probably naked as well, weren't you?
Probably naked, and there's videos of it. But I know, please, continue telling us about your experience working on with The Cure and Ross Robinson, which is a great producer.
Yeah. So it was like just a very interesting. We were at Olympic Studios, so like T-Rex and like Led Zeppelin have done stuff in this room, and it's just
Who?
like
Sorry?
T-Rex.
No, I'm kidding. So, I think I'm funny. Sorry.
No. I didn't catch the visual at first. So
pretty surreal then, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy, and like Ross is a producer who is very much all about emotions,
right.
And he pulls a performance out of, like, I've worked under a lot of producers, and he pulls performances out that are way different. And like, Robert's such an intense emotional person, which is why, so many people have bawled crying to these records over the years. Like I'm not I should say this. Back then, I wasn't a man who cried a lot. And then I think I spent like 27 days straight crying. At work every night. You're trying to like turn knobs, and you're like, oh my God, he's telling this story, and it's just so moving. Oh my God. And like, I had like a crazy emotional cleanse. And then like the coming down after that record was like, like getting off of drugs. It was like craving these intense emotional experiences. So I'd go home and fight with my girlfriend and say really truthful things to her. And it was very interesting. It was a definite learning experience about when you really pour yourself into something creatively and get emotionally honest, how addicting that dopamine rush can be. And so that was really interesting.
Well, I have to say, Ross, not Ross Barber, but Ross Robinson has produced some of my ultimate favorite records as well, being Korn and Slipknot's first two records.
Slipknot,
my God.
Glassjaw Records, At the Drive-In, Blood Brothers, those are some of my favorite records. And it was just an honor, and I'm very honored to have him as one of my like best friends. And I learned a ton from him. And he's just so much different than any human that produces records of that, like, as the stories go, of like putting Jonathan Davis in a headlock and like, forcing him to talk about the emotional torment that his father gave him.
Yeah, I mean, Daddy is in the song called Daddy, the closing track on the debut record.
Yeah. And
the video, he's bawling his eyes out. It's all real. But I didn't realize the involvement of Ross Robinson in pulling that out of him.
Ross took him and made him confront his father and then had him go record the vocal.
Oh my God, I did not know that.
Yeah, and like, you know, not many producers will go that deep with somebody, and it taught me a lot about. I'm nothing compared to him, but when, you know, I do a lot of records where it's like, you don't have to go too deep, like a Man Overboard song like I Like You. It's like, oh, how's your girlfriend?
Yeah, right.
But like, when it's
that's good too, right?
It's time to get really confrontational, and I take that into a lot of parts of my life. Like, it's even I've been doing a lot of interviews for a project I have coming up, and I get very confrontational in the interviews, and I think it's important that we do that at times, because so much fluff in the world, and no one needs that in our music. We need realness, and we need, one of the reasons Ross produces records that mean a lot to people is that he gets an exceptional amount of realness instead of this kind of mediocrity of churning out the records that we get with so many different people.
You know, I couldn't agree more, and I really admire everything you're saying. You're being very humble, but this applies to yourself as well. I completely that's what I kind of aspire to, is just truth. Like you said, there's so much crap in the world. There's so many lies, and I can see through it. I mean, most of us, I think, that are true fans of music can see through bullshit. And why add any more crap into the world? So that's something I truly admire, man. I really do. We need more people like you, you know, behind the console.
I think it's even in all of life, because I think it's even politics and anything in our emotional friendships is like, there's this Joe Strummer quote that I discovered a few years ago that like really summed it up to me, is that he says what punk rock is I'm wise to the ways of the world and I can see through the bullshit. Give me something that's real, because I know when it's not real. And like, when I heard that, I was like, that's been me since I discovered punk rock, is I want the real. I don't want, and while I can listen to Katy Perry and say, yes, that's fake. Yeah. Love it.
Yeah, of course. but you love it for what it is, though. Yeah. Right? Like there are different things, you know?
Yeah. And I think there's like a thing of like, you know, like one of the reasons like somebody like Elizabeth Warren inspires people in politics, or like just, you know, you see, I think we do have a more realness in some of our pop stars these days, of that, like, you know, seeing what people do when they're on Twitter and seeing them freak out a little bit. Like, that realness makes people identify, and why we're seeing these bonds between fans and artists a little bit more, is that there's no longer that ability to like, I even think about Rihanna. Like, Rihanna is a pretty vacuous pop star. Is not saying anything, but every once in a while she gets really real. Like when she was on Oprah one time, and Oprah tried to shame her for the naked pictures that she had. And she just turned to Oprah and she's like, Oprah, if you're not sending those to your man, somebody else is. And it's like, no, that's fucking real.
You go, girl.
Yeah, totally. Like, and I think that's the thing is we're all in an era where we're just discovering that we're able to see behind the total bullshit. I think this has been something that's happening over the course of 40 years, but like some would say even since Watergate in America, and like we've had this like realism of seeing behind what, you know, the NFL is experiencing in America right now. And I don't really follow sports, but we're finally seeing that these guys can't hide what wife-beating assholes they are.
Yep.
And I think it's just that thing of like, I think people really want real. And if you learn how to give that to them right now, you're going to be rewarded with it. And I'm on that boat. I'm going hard on it.
Man, real is warts and all. It's not perfection. I mean, you know what I mean?
I think I think that's even an interesting thing too. Of one of the things I've been talking about lately is that real is also not just like, you know, like there's a weird thing. I don't want to condone wife beating, but we all make mistakes in life, and seeing that some of these guys who are idolized are imperfect also makes us not feel as bad about when we mess up. And I don't look up to any football players, but knowing that my idols are not perfect, and like, you know, even the thing of like, you know, I grew up really respecting Ross and Steve and getting to know that they were human, and you know, watching Steve Evans throw up into a toilet just as I do occasionally and get a little too drunk. It's like, yes, even the man I respect the most, it's like, you know, he's going to have that night, just one too many. It's much rarer for Steve than me, though, I should say, for the public's consumption. In fact, I think it's about 1,000 to 1 me to him.
Well, I know that Ross and I are already thinking that the title of this podcast vodcast is going to be it's going to be I'm sorry, I can't even say it. It's gonna be, Jesse Cannon condones wife beating in the NFL.
Yes, totally.
Well, that's clickbait right there.
Yeah, totally. That's about how bad Zach is to be with the Off the Record podcast.
Yeah.
I have noticed that there's been times when he's named it and you've had something to say.
Yeah, he chides me a bit. If I was the one doing the naming of the podcast, though, he'd be getting the same treatment. So
I love it. So Ross, I know that you one of the many reasons you relate to Jesse is because you guys both take a similar approach with how you work with musicians.
Yeah. Like one of the things that I like about what you do, Jesse, is obviously you produce artists, but you don't just leave it at that. It's not like once you've produced the record, they're gone, and it's like see you until you want to hire me again. You know, you're actively like helping them out, offering them advice, trying to connect them with other people, and that's kind of what I do with my clients as well. I don't like to just sort of say, right, I've designed your website now, pay me and get lost. You know,
yes.
That's what you did with me.
People.
No, sorry, kidding.
Well, we won't go into that. No, like I'm always connecting them. I'm keeping an eye out for PR opportunities, and you know, just connecting them with anyone that can help. And I think it's important that we all do that. And I think everyone should do that a little bit more. You know,
I think that's great, and it's almost like one of those things. Like I obviously don't have any secrets, but you know, it shouldn't be a secret, but I think the sad thing is a lot of people don't. I think there's another thing of when you get hired by people is who hires you. I tend to have a nice thing that I attract a certain type of person that I usually get along with. Like I've full-time 15 years, 21 years producing records. I've gotten along poorly with two of the bands. And I think that's the thing is I generally work with people I want to help and I want to continue a relationship and I want to think. So that makes it very, very easy. And I think that's another thing that I think it's very convenient, but we have to try to work with people that we do feel a real bond with and search out and approach. And I approach a lot of people, and I then also encourage the people I work with to spread the word, because if they're working together with another group, odds are we're going to get along and everything's going to be great. But like, I love nothing more that most of my best friends are people I've met throughout the years working. I mean, even Todd, who I wrote my book with, randomly I was on a message board and somebody said they needed a studio to record drums. Todd came with his bandmate who I originally talked for about 10 minutes, and then we became best friends. And that's just what it was, is just continuing a relationship. And I think people underestimate how important that is oftentimes.
Well, I love that you say this. I go by the same rule. You know, when I'm choosing a producer or anyone to work with, it's important not only obviously their work and obviously if you like, but who they are and if you're going to click with them. And that actually leads me. I wanted to ask you. You know, if there's any aspiring musicians here that want to know if it's the right time for them to start finding a producer. You know, well, first of all, when is the right time for a musician to find a producer or a band? And, you know, what should be the criteria that they're focusing on? Because I personally don't think it should just be credits.
I agree with you, actually. I think it's very important to have a meeting. But the right time to start is you should do some demos and then you should start working with producers. I actually think bands should, while it's a bit of a luxury thing and not everybody has the money, is like record 2 to 3 songs with one producer and then maybe another producer if that one didn't work out for you, and start learning. Because the one thing is too, like, you know, I have like a saying that I like to say to justify some actions in my life, but like, you know, don't marry the girl you lost your virginity to every time. Like, go out there and see, there's a wonderful world of work, because then when you find the right person, you go, well, I've experimented enough and I know, you know, this one's A-okay with me. And say that as a 36-year-old single man. So,
well, you know what though, and the other thing too is, I think that depends on what you're writing at the current time too. You know what I mean? Like some bands, I'm going to cite a band like Alexa on Fire. Worked with the same producer, Julius Buddy, who I had the pleasure of working with, on every single one of their albums, because not the first one, but they found the guy that was just right for them, right?
Sure.
But a lot of different bands will work with different producers, and that doesn't mean that they didn't love what another producer did with their stuff. It just, you know, it might be what direction they're going with in that particular record, you know? So I think, you know, I think exactly what you're saying there. It's not, maybe they have to be in a polygamous relationship.
Yeah, well,
or serial monogamy.
What I think is really interesting thing that happened a lot more in the 90s, and that I don't see happen as much, that I think is kind of lost in a lot of groups, is like who you do your full lengths with is really going to be what you're remembered by. And I think a lot of bands don't get into that experimentation. They just go, well, I'm now going to commit to this person who I have no idea if it's going to work just because I like their credits. And I'm going to now do 12 songs with them. And that could end your career, because that next full length is what you're measured by. You see so many bands when they have the wrong producer hookup and the relationship's bad, that they kind of end their career with that bad move. And I guess like the other thing I would say is that, like, yeah, sometimes you do find the right person at first, but I think there is a thing of that you don't always know, and you don't know who could do better. And that's one of the weirdest things about these recordings, is like you don't have a lot of bands like Jimmy Eat World who've thrown away full records twice, like right before the mixing process, and just been like, this isn't right. Is like most people don't.
Green Day have done that as well.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. They claimed that one time that it got stolen.
Whether or not it's
no, that was not true, and I have the facts to prove.
Oh, okay.
That was a total lie. But they came out with one of their best records after that, and they were smart enough to do that.
They threw out the record, didn't they? That's
yeah. They threw out the record. That's the truth. That's the truth. Yeah. I mean, I have it on word from someone who worked on the record.
Oh, I believe it. It makes sense.
Yeah, and it's a much better story to say it got stolen.
Of course.
Then no one ever's asking for the reels to hear it.
Exactly.
So I think that was really smart strategy. I hate to blow up their spot like that. But, what do you call it? But so, I mean, it's a funny thing, because I've had some bands I've worked with that people don't enjoy their output after I've worked with them, and they're like, well, they get back with you. I'm like, well, that's their decision as a creative person. They're trying out things. They're figuring out maybe we'll make some records in the future. Maybe we won't. But like, so much of record production is about how somebody fills in their blanks. And so one of the big variables too is like, one, we touched on meeting, is that like, yes, you have to have a working personality, and like how far do you want someone to go in? Like John Feldman, for example, will rewrite your entire song for you and maybe keep like 25% of it at times. Whereas I'm somebody who, like, generally you come to me and I'm going to go, well, let's do this, but I'm going to leave a semblance of a form. But I'm going to make sure like there's a great vibe. And then so another thing might be is that a record producer might come in and like you have a terrible, terrible drummer, but they're a guy who's really good with vocals. Then it's not going to work out so well when your drummer sounds terrible and he doesn't know how to make suggestions for making those beats work well with the vocal melodies and how to get the groove to actually work on this record. I pride myself that I can do everything pretty damn well, but I'm not like the world's greatest songwriter. I don't ever fully rewrite anybody's songs, with a very, very rare exception. And I think that's the thing, is you got to find who's going to do that. Because some bands, like, if you're one of those Joey Sturgis bands, you kind of need that guy to kind of he's like almost like doing remixes of metal songs. Like you come in with like this kind of standard chug metal song, and then he's like putting in all these THX effects in it and skips and all this crazy stuff. And it's like, it's a whole new animal.
Well, my most recent experience with a producer was when I did my debut full-length album. I did it with Jim Wirt.
He did drums at my studio one time with some bands, actually. He was a really nice guy.
Oh, Jim's he's amazing. And I'm so glad I picked him entirely. It was a great working relationship, and we really hit it off, which is getting to what I'm about to say is, I can't speak today. I contacted a few different producers, and I hate to say this, a few bigger producers, or really big producers that were interested. But the reason I picked Jim, and not that Jim is not a big producer, he's whatever the word big is.
Yes.
I went with him because our jive, man. Not only did I love what he did, but him and I just clicked. I knew right away. You know what I mean? It was just like, totally. This is the guy. He gets me. He didn't rewrite a single one of my songs. The demos to the recordings is pretty much the same structure and everything. But he pushed out the best performances out of me, man. That's what I was looking for. You know what I mean? Whereas some bands maybe, or some artists are looking for something different. But, just kind of relating to, what we're talking about here, it's about, I think you got to listen to that feeling inside too. Is this the right person for me? Right? Don't get all starry eyed with someone who's maybe won a Grammy or something like that. Because there's more. It's not just about winning a Grammy. I mean, that doesn't mean that one person is necessarily better than the other. We all know there's campaigning that goes along, just like with the Oscars and everything. Not diminishing that. Yeah. I am bitter. I don't have a Grammy myself. I'm just saying. You know what I'm trying to say? Though
Grammys are a shitty mark of
that's what I'm trying
success.
to say.
But like, what I think is even more interesting though is like, so let's say your favorite band is all right, we don't even need to use a bad example. You could just love this band. You're like, wow, well, that producer worked with that guy, but you don't know if like, so there's some bands in my career that have been like, Steve Evans actually has a great analogy of it. He calls it, he's like, all you have to do is walk across a room and not drop water. As long as you do a mediocre job, this band is so good, you're just gonna do fine. And then there's other bands where you have to rescue everything. You're going to be editing. You're going to be working on their performances for hours and hours and hours because they kind of suck. And not that even great musicians, you can work on their performances, get them to do even better. But like, there's some bands that you just like, you don't need to go in there and be like, I'm going to put my mark on this by doing it. Like, you know, I worked with one producer on a record that like, he just kept rewriting things. And, you know, a year later we talked, the band and I reconvened and we're like, man, that record, when I listened to the demos, was so much better before he changed everything. And he just changed it to get his paycheck and feel like he did something. And
but part of your job is sometimes not touching as much though.
Yeah. Right? I mean, you know, it's very funny. I do I'm lucky enough to say that most of the time I do numerous records with the band, and like I just worked with this great band. In fact, I can even say it. This band called Strange Times, who I really, really in love, and they're like, you know, you did a little less on these songs than you did. I'm like, well, you got to be a lot better songwriters. In the last
Exactly, that should be a compliment.
I didn't have to go in and like change as much because you guys learned so much from the last experience because you're smart, good musicians, and that's the optimal.
Well, you know, just speaking of Grammys, I just want to say that Milli Vanilli won a Grammy. So,
great point, but Girl, You Know It's True is a hell of somebody else.
It's a hell of a job that some other people did.
Exactly. But, so, actually, that's a tangent we don't need to go down.
Yeah, getting controversial here, which we like. We like getting controversial here.
I don't want to spend the time defending Milli Vanilli.
All right. Are you ready for 20 questions?
I am always ready for 20 questions. At least I think I am until they're hard.
Ross, how do you want to do this? 5 and 5, back and forth?
Yeah, let's do 5 and 5. Do you want to start or do you want me to start?
I'll start.
Okay, you start.
Okay, here we go. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Meat or veggies?
Meat.
CD or vinyl?
CD.
Summer or winter?
Summer.
Brand new or Taking Back Sunday?
Taking Back Sunday.
Twitter or Facebook?
Twitter.
Melody or rhythm?
Melody.
Nirvana or Skrillex?
Me before 3 years ago, always Nirvana, Skrillex today. That was really tough. That was really.
Well,
really
I got that from your podcast because you mentioned. Yes. That's where I got it.
I figured, and that now I'm eating a little crow because part of me died inside. But yes, I mean, I listen to a lot.
Come on, you've had more than 20 years to appreciate Nirvana. It's okay to appreciate other artists as well.
It's true, but those remasters were so good. I've been rocking them in utero vinyl, and but you know, Skrillex just makes my 36-year-old self a little bit happier these days.
Hey, indie or major?
Indie.
Taylor Swift or Taylor Lautner?
Well, I hate Taylor Swift, and I don't know who Taylor Lautner is.
He's the guy from the Twilight
That dude
movies.
from Twilight, yeah.
Oh, the wolf.
The wolf guy, yeah.
I
have no idea. I've never seen them.
I saw this picture of him where he's wearing sunglasses, and he has another pair on his shirt, so I can't go with him either. So
that is the epitome of douche. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was just, that's too much for me. That my ex had a real.
That would be as bad as me wearing a fedora, but still holding a fedora in my hand, just just in case I want to switch it.
Yes, totes.
The Simpsons or Futurama?
This is gonna get me a lot of shame. Neither.
Oh, okay. What's an alternative of adult animated series?
I mean, I'm Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
Okay, so. You ever watch Archer?
Oh, I love Archer.
That's a great show.
Yeah,
that's a great show. One of my favorites.
That's a great. One of my
favorites.
So I work with bands, and what lots of annoying bands do is quote The Simpsons all the time while you're trying to work. So it drove me to hate the Simpsons.
I'm one of those guys. I'm sorry.
You're one of those guys. So like,
but I quote all the shows though. I try to have a balance. You know. Okay. Mac or PC?
Mac.
Friends or Frasier?
That's I hate so much. That's hard.
Okay, the next one is U2 or Coldplay, and in brackets, Ross has written, I'm sure he hates both, so thought it would be funny to make him choose.
I like the first Coldplay record.
Yeah, first Coldplay record was
agree.
good.
Yeah.
And the second one wasn't too bad either, actually.
Yeah, there's some good songs on the second one. It's everything after that that is just, it's the same. I love some early U2, and I think Octung Baby is an amazing record, but they ruined it for me.
Sunday Bloody Sunday. I think that's I still love
Sunday
that song.
Bloody Sunday.
You don't like the fact that they forced you to have their new record? Listen to it.
Yeah.
Half a billion people must listen to it.
What I really don't like is the co-opting Joey Ramone all these years after his death. And I know they were friends and Joey died listening to it, but Jesus Christ, come on.
Michael Jackson or Michael Bolton?
Oh, Michael Jackson. I better be starting something all the time.
I have a it's not leather, it's a pleather jacket because I'm vegan, but it's a red pleather jacket. I got to show you guys a picture. It's completely Michael Jackson's jacket.
Do you still have
80s.
it?
Yeah, I just got it like
you're gonna wear it on the next. You're gonna wear it on the
Am
next.
I gonna wear it? Okay.
You're wearing it on the next show.
Just learn some good dance moves where you twirl your fedora down your arm and back up.
Yeah, exactly. I got it. And I'm like, ow.
Yeah.
Okay, it's you, Ross.
Twerk or work?
Twerk.
And you said you're the best. Yeah, exactly. You're the best dancer.
I'll tell you, like I go to some twerking things in Williamsburg, and I have a good old time.
I'm sure you do.
It's true.
We want videos. Ricky Gervais or Ricky Martin?
Ross wants video.
Oh, Ricky Gervais.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Whale or Kale?
Kale.
Bette Midler or the Riddler?
Oh, the Riddler. That's pretty good.
And there's the big question. And, think carefully. And bear in mind that I bought your book and I listened to your podcast, and I'm not a stalker. I
Keep in mind that I admire your truth, as a producer, and maybe we'll work together in the future. Just keep that in mind when you answer the next question.
Mm-hmm.
So it's Ross or Marcio?
Oh Jesus, guys, come on. Well, I'm trying to think. I like the Thursday shirt, but the glasses.
Yeah, I wore this for you.
I have more than one Thursday shirt. I just didn't wear it. Ross beat me to it.
I told him not to.
Is he a fan of Thursday? Because I'm a huge fan.
Those are some smart glasses. So, and I'm a man who respects spectacles.
You want glasses? I'll get my glasses.
Oh, Jesus.
I'll get changed right now, man. I'll put on all my Thursday apparel.
I left mine off, so I looked a little less nerdy. So. And they're
oh, thanks. I see what it's like. Okay, it's Ross. We get it.
My personal brand, I'm trying to offset some nerd here. I'm trying to cultivate something here, and I don't want to go chew down the nerd rabbit hole.
So, what's your answer?
Oh Jesus! Really? I thought I got.
I was going to say nicely avoided, but yeah, we're bringing it back.
I come on. I watch all these political shows just so I know how to avoid uncomfortable questions.
You're good at it, man. It's both of us, isn't it?
It totes is.
Okay, I helped you out there. I won't make you choose.
Nice.
Just tell us a little bit more. Tell us a little bit about Off the Record, which is your podcast.
Off the Record is a podcast I do with Zack Zarrillo. Zack is the label manager at Jade Tree. He owns Bad Timing Records. He manages bands like Knuckle Puck and Light Years. Works at Synergy Management, doing day-to-day for Real Friends. Writes a website called Property of Zack, and I'm probably even missing some things because at 21 years old, he's that accomplished.
Oh, wow.
I didn't realize Zack was so young.
Yeah, I met Zack
when he was older.
I think I met Zack when he was 16 or 17, and we immediately clicked. He's one of the smartest people I know, and he turned to me and said, let's do a podcast where we just talk to each other, and I said, that's going to be awkward. But it turned out to be really good. And I was originally going to do a podcast where I just did interviews with people, which I've been doing for a while, but I've been accumulating them for a while to release at a later date. But
absolutely what we're doing. Very smart.
Yes, you got to do it. I also
get ahead of yourself a little bit so it's not as overwhelming.
Yeah, and I also had to just have like a nice surgery on my voice, and everybody was worried that I was going to lose my voice for a while.
Wonderful.
So, yeah, so you wanted to have that stockpile in case something happens.
Yes,
but but we release an episode once a week. It's on the music business, tech, and punk rock.
Good for you, man. That's awesome. Yeah. And you have your own studio, Canon Foundation. I almost said Canon Sound Foundation, but you're tricking me, aren't you?
Yeah, that was the so that when I never thought I was going to own my own studio, and was really into Brian Eno at the time, and he was always talking about
Brian
sound.
Yeah,
and he's always talking about found sounds. I was like, oh, this will be clever. This will only be on like 3 records. And so, yeah, now 15 years later of owning that studio,
that's awesome.
It's really bad that I have to own both website domains because people type it in wrong so much. So,
but at least you've done that. So many people don't do that. At least you've done it.
Yeah, there's a nice lesson to everybody. And truth be told, actually, I'm going to be honest because this is what we were saying before. So somebody who's very, very mean to one of my best friends that owns another recording studio, I got the common misspelling of their studio and let him write what he thought of his experience recording there and put it up on a page, and I did that for him. And that's what you get for messing with my friend and being a homophobe.
That would get me in and of itself. That's one of my biggest pet peeves. So what are you listening to lately? What sort of music recommendations do you have?
Porter Robinson Worlds is my favorite record of the year. The new Menzingers record, Rented World. The 1975. There's this guy named Sophie who makes probably the weirdest dance music out right now. The new Aphex Twin I listened to all this morning that just got posted up. And then a lot of podcasts. I'm looking forward to listening to this one when you guys get it out.
Cool.
Good answer, right?
That was a good one. That almost saved you.
That was good.
Bad dance music I listened to.
Yeah, you might have some people come after you saying, "Why did you let him off answering the Ross and Marcy question?" We had one guest that started a whole feud, and Ross just wouldn't let go that she picked me over Ross because she knows Ross and not me.
Of mine, and she picked Marcio.
Ross couldn't let it go.
I don't blame you.
So where can people find you online? JesseCannon.com, I know there.
That's the best place. I have a blog called Musformation that I rarely update these days that I try to put music business stuff on, but mostly JesseCannon.com is a nice direction to all the things I do, like teaching courses and the next book that's coming out, the next podcasts that are coming out. Awesome. That all gets updated there. And
you're also on Twitter, of course, Jesse Cannon.
Yes.
And you're on Instagram and Facebook as well?
Same things. I have Jesse Cannon on all of them.
That's awesome. Hey man, this has been such a pleasure. Honestly, it's I'm so glad Ross introduced me to you.
Awesome.
I think that you might receive some demos from me sometime in the future. Right?
I hope so. I'd love to hear.
Yeah, man, I really like what you stand for, and it's you've got a good energy. You've got a good no, you do. You've got a good energy, and like I said, we need more people in the music business like yourself. So thank you for coming on our show, man. It's been an absolute pleasure.
I appreciate it. Look forward to hearing what you guys do with this.
Thanks for watching Bridge the Atlantic. If you like what you saw, make sure to like, favorite, and most importantly, subscribe so that you don't miss each week's episode.
Click on the videos above us if you'd like to see more, and please feel free to leave us a comment letting us know what you think of the show.
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and subscribe to us on iTunes so that you can listen to us on the go. Thanks again for being awesome, and we'll see you on next week's episode.